What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Blindside Blitz. I am Jim McFee, and of course, right there is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
What's going on, Blitz Nation? Welcome back again. We are ready to go, and we are doing our second part of the Odd Man Out series. Now we're going to be switching gears, going to the NFC. We're going to give you the lowdown on every team and who we think is going to be the odd man out. Before we get to that, Jim, how you doing, my friend?
Good, man. Good. Not too bad. The weather's been beautiful out here, right? After all that rain, it's been nuts. But now finally, New York, that's what it is, man. You never know what you're going to get here, but it's been sunny the last couple of days. I grilled today, so it's been nice.
Absolutely. It's up and down every single day in New York. So we'll take whatever we can get, right? We'll take as much as we can get it. But also for all our viewers out there, if you're new to the show, we strongly encourage you to head over to YouTube for us, hit that subscribe button, as well the thumbs up, share it to all your family and friends, all that good stuff, because we are rocketing through the atmosphere, eclipsing 10,000, going for 11,000 currently with subscribers, and we're not stopping there. So we want you guys to be part of the show. Make sure you drop down in the comments. We are live. Anytime you comment, we're going to give you a shout out. You want to ask a question, give an opinion, anything you want to do. That's what the show's all about. Let's get interactive.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And I figure we got to start the show before we get into the other stuff we had planned. We got to bring up the fact that Derek Carr announced his retirement here. I know Carr's got a special place for you, probably in your heart here, Raider Nation. I figured we had to talk about Derek Carr here quick before we get into it, and his career as a whole, and what this really even means for the Saints moving forward too. So now all of a sudden, Tyler Shuck is thrown right in there in the starting spot, you would think, or at least battling it out here with Spencer Rattler here for the Saints. But Derek Carr, after the bad news with his shoulder, having to have surgery, obviously he's like, I'm not going to sit through a whole nother season and rehab and then try and come back again. I'm just done with this. So, all right, reflect on Derek Carr and his career here quick there, Joe.
I mean, honestly, like Derek Carr, for all the haters out there of Derek Carr and what he's accomplished throughout his career, the guy has been a top 10 quarterback. I mean, you can go look in the stats and you can nitpick if you want to, and that's what a lot of haters do. They nitpick on a couple of bad games or a bad season here and there. Like, the guy has been pretty darn good, pretty solid of a quarterback. So, you can look at what he's done without talent around him. You can look at what he's overcome. There was one season in particular where the Raiders, when he was on the Raiders team, like, they had nothing around him, bad O-line, no real wide receivers, just Hunter Renfrow. That was it. And somehow, some way, Derek Carr helped them reach the playoffs when everything looked in doubt. So for a guy who's kind of overcome the odds as a second-round pick, who's done very well for himself, it's sad to see it end this way for Derek Carr, because I feel like he loved football so much. So he loves the fans. He loves the Raider Nation. He loves Who Dat Nation. He loves the fans and loves the organizations that he played for. And unfortunately, it's not his own terms. It's like, now you have to deal with this shoulder surgery where you don't know the end of it all, what it means. Is he going to come back in a year? Does the surgery go successful or not? Is he going to be delayed longer and have to be forced into retirement anyway? So for Derek Carr, he spoke with his family after hearing the news that he's going to have to definitely get the surgery, would definitely sit out at least this year. And because there's no guarantees, he was like, well, I made a lot of money for myself and my family. I've had a good career. I'm 34 years old. Like, how much longer am I really going to play? And the other side of the coin with the Saints is that we heard rumors about them kind of willing to maybe cut him after this year. So there was also that. And does he really want to go to a new team and start all this all over again? So with all that being said, he came to the conclusion of saying, you know what, maybe it's just time.
Yeah, and here we go. And I think everybody's got a different opinion about Derek Carr. There's, like you said, there's a lot of haters out there. Some of it, maybe even the team that he played on. The fact that he put up some pretty good numbers, but never really, the Raiders weren't able to win a whole lot of playoff games. Just to look at his stats quick. In his career, passing yards 41,245 passing yards, touchdowns 257 with a 112 INTs. Made the Pro Bowl 2 times, and he also led the Raiders to their first playoff appearance since 2002.
Feels like 2,000 years have passed for the Raiders, and they only made it one time.
Yes, and he holds franchise records for passing yards, passing touchdowns, passing completions, and attempts, and tied for 14th most in NFL history with 28 fourth quarter comebacks. So he's got his stats out there. He is lamented in history. Now, when comes his time to be evaluated for the Hall of Fame, we shall see where people see.
Yeah, I don't think Derek Carr did enough to get into the Hall of Fame. Honestly, like, there's going to be a lot of people out there that say, well, he showed promise, but on the other side of it, did he ever get to the Super Bowl? No. Did he ever get to the championship game? You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be people that doubt the player, but stats aside, the guy definitely uplifted the team when there really wasn't much to go around. I mean, look at the Saints this past year. Before Derek Carr's injury, he was the only quarterback on the roster that actually got a win for them. I mean, and that was guys that were injured. The offensive line was beat up. The wide receivers were dropping like flies. So, I mean, say what you want about him, but I feel like he was a guy that any one team could have won with. But the fact of the matter is that when it all stacks up, neither team, the Saints or the Raiders, never had the roster around him to win the big game or even make it.
Yep. All right, we've got William Del Pilar is in the house. He says Derek Carr had talent and showed promise, but never quite elevated himself or the team to the next level. Still, he was better than critics claimed. A solid quarterback in a challenging situation where you land in the NFL makes all the difference. And I mean, that makes sense too, especially where he was and how many different head coaches and different offenses he had to learn. I think if he didn't, if he wasn't as smart and was able to pick up the playbooks as fast, it could have been even more disastrous for him. But what he had done, throughout his career, despite having those limitations, we've seen quarterbacks that never get it right. Look at me and my situation with the Giants and Daniel Jones going through multiple head coaches and things in different playbooks and not panning out at all. You know what I mean? So,
and that's the crazy thing is, not many people know this, but Derek Carr had a photographic memory. The guy could literally remember things that happened 2 years ago against the same team on the same down with the same distance to go. Like, he would remember exactly the play and everything. The guy was incredible as far as that goes, but also, like you mentioned, the offensive coordinators. It was almost like head coaches. It was almost like a new regime for him every single year, just about. That he had to learn a new system, learn a new way of doing things, how the coaches wanted him to do it, and still, on top of it all, try to somehow, some way, help the team win.
Absolutely, Joe. So there you go. Ends a career here, Derek Carr. Shout out to him. So big news tonight. What's going on and everything is the whole release of the NFL season, 2025 schedule. So everybody's talking about that, and there's already been leaks everywhere.
Right.
I like how they just, they're like, hey, save our big moment for us, but then, leak a little bit here, sprinkle it out here and there. And I like how even too, they're like, the first game is going to be played in, it's going to be the Chargers in Brazil.
Yeah.
We're not going to tell you who they're going to face. So how about that? Dun, dun,
Leave the cliffhanger. Just let it marinate before we, let that be known.
So, before we get into some of the big games, so let's talk about the international games, Joe. We've talked about this multiple times on this show, on our other show, Football on the No Show, 2 Wednesday nights. International, how they're trying to make this a worldwide sport. They include Madrid, Berlin, and Dublin now this year, which I think could be really interesting. I can't wait to see that Dublin game this season. And that will fall, what is it, on week 4, the Steelers and the Vikings, 2 teams that are legendary. They go back to the 70s, the Purple People Eaters and the Steel Curtain, fight it out in Ireland. I can't wait to see that game here too. But Joe, what do you think about now the new games they've added here with the new international markets that they've been trying to spread throughout here? And what games are you most excited to see here?
So, I mean, for the Vikings, first off, the Vikings will be the very first team in NFL history to go back to back
That's right.
international games.
That's
You know,
right.
they go from Dublin to the UK. As first they meet the Steelers, and they fight with them, and then they head over to the
His Hop
UK
Islands.
to go
That's
up
what they
against
do.
the Cleveland Browns. So, um, guess what? It's going to be about 3 weeks to a month until you see your family. So I know that that's not the Vikings. What they wanted to do, um, and that's kind of like that's the double edged sword here in this whole situation. The NFL is always looking to expand the fan bases, expand the NFL's reach across the world, and to continue to do that to rake in more revenue, like they always like to do. And this is just another way to do it. We know that the NFL game, American football is huge worldwide. We get it. But now it seems like every single season we're stretching ourselves thinner and thinner. At what point do we stop adding games? At what point do we stop going back to back on games? With so far it's just the Vikings, but next year maybe it's two or three teams. So it's got to be a little concerning because I know for a fact coaching staffs, players, they are not liking these type of games. If it's once in a while, I don't think they mind it that much, but now it's becoming more and more often that we're traveling over to a completely different country, and you have all that money that the owners are shelling out. And I get it. The owners have the money to shell out. Not saying that, but it's just making all these different travel plans and trying to find a practice facility and where do you practice and how do you how do you keep the everyday football life for the NFL player as common and the same as possible. And I feel like we're getting dangerously close to expanding so much to where it's not going to feel much like an American game. So uh, I've kind of been against adding more games to the schedule because it just means more travel, more time away from family and friends. You don't know what's going to happen overseas either. Like we go to the
I know they
UK,
talked about the Berlin or the Brazil game. Remember when they were talking
yeah,
about Philadelphia, Green Bay,
yeah,
I think, and even the rivalries between football teams, there,
there,
soccer
yep.
football teams,
And the
and
fact
what
that
might
there's gangs
Mhm.
down there with the same colors that they thought that was gonna be a problem. Luckily, it didn't turn out to be like that, but again, there's probably other things that are gonna pop up as we go through this season, going to different countries. Are they gonna experience some, you know, different, um, different things that they're going to have to go through in terms of laws, in terms of how they go about, everyday life when they're over there? So it would really suck. It would be a shitty thing if somehow, someway we've seen players get in trouble here in the States. What
Mhm.
happens if they get in trouble in a foreign country?
Mhm.
There's a lot of variables involved in this,
Right?
and I I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just saying in generalities, like what if something like this happens? I mean, so
Yeah, and yeah, I know what's funny too is when you go to these countries too, they're going to try and tell you to stay in your hotel as much and this and this, and you're probably going to
yeah,
want to because you want to rest too as well. But
mhm,
what's going to stop some of these players? You know what I mean? Some of these players are
right,
still going to want to try and experience some of this because
exactly,
what especially I obviously they don't run the Bulls in Madrid, but it's not too far away. The fact that you're not like, you can stop a player from going, hey, listen, I'm out here in Spain now. I'm gonna
yeah.
go run with the Bulls. Let's go
Yeah.
do this, or
I'm
let's
faster
see
than
these
a
guys
bull.
train out there like doing this. I'm gonna do this.
That
I can do this, and
we're gonna
coach is
start
like,
doing
no, please
40
don't do
times with
this.
the bulls
You
in the
know,
back. You'll really see how
uh,
fast you are,
right?
you know? But
Right?
yeah,
Like we're
I mean,
starting
going
to
back to the
see,
games,
Terrell Owens and Tyreek Hill, chasing and racing each other. You're going to see Tyreek Hill trying to outrace the Bulls here in
right,
Madrid.
just to prove a point, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
I will
yeah,
say
yeah.
this, like, after looking at some of the international games, I'm really
Mhm.
curious to see who the Chargers play, to be honest. I feel like
Yeah.
that's going to be depending on the team, that may be the go-to international game, but we still
Mhm.
have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm trying to
I'm not
remember who had that market because we did have a list of the markets of who owns
Yeah,
rights to those markets.
right.
Um,
I mean, if when I'm looking at it, honestly, like, none of the games are really appealing to me. Like, there's no clear-cut rivalry game internationally. There's no, like, comparable level of play. It seems like when you look at all the games, like, okay, Rams against Jags. Wow, can't wait for that one. I mean, the Rams should beat the Jags. Broncos against Jets. Broncos probably will beat the Jets. You know, uh, Vikings against the Steelers. I think the Vikings are a better team on paper right now. I think
mhm.
that they
Oh,
should
yeah.
beat the
I
Steelers.
mean, Steelers, you
Uh,
don't know what you're doing right
Vikings
now.
against the Browns. Same thing. I think that might be the most competitive one right now, currently, because if Joe Flacco is indeed the starter, at least that gives him some continuity, some veteran, uh, leadership there. So, I mean,
Well,
there's fun games like the Atlanta Falcons against the Colts. Okay,
you know
can't
what?
wait to see if maybe Richardson takes a step forward, and if he does, it's Richardson versus Michael Penix Jr. That could be
Mhm,
fun to watch. Uh, Washington against Miami. Again, predicated on Tua staying healthy. If
mhm.
Tua's healthy and he's there for the game, it could turn out to be a decent game. But again, there's like no one game where I'm like, "Oh my god, can't wait."
Yeah, and what's funny too is I noticed, because even last year, Philadelphia, I don't think got a whole lot of, primetime games. They might have gotten a few here, but
Mhm.
it seems like this one, they really made a focus at least to bring out the fact that here we go, we've got the Eagles on a bunch of these
Yeah,
matchups here, one against the Packers here at Lambeau.
right.
Yeah, and then the Chiefs will host the Eagles, uh, in a Super Bowl rematch even too, which they always kind of do a rematch game anyways, with the next
Mhm.
season after. A lot of times it's
Yeah,
the first game, like right after, I'm surprised they didn't go with that this
yeah,
year.
right.
Instead, they go Eagles Cowboys for the season opener on September 4th. But
Hey,
again,
Jerry,
that's not really
we're just
compelling
living
to
in
me.
it.
I'm not interested in that game as much. Like, I don't
No,
know if you feel the same way or not, but
I mean, honestly, like that's a Jerry Jones pull in the NFL. Like he always wants his team to be part of the spotlight of the NFL. He's got a lot of power, at the table. So this is kind of one of those games where it's like Jerry's like, "Hey, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, Roger, hook me up. Give me a game that maybe a lot of people will watch."
Mhm.
But you're going against the Eagles, and honestly, like, even with Dak Prescott healthy, I feel like it'll be a decent game early on, but the Eagles are just so well, you know, endowed with roster. Like, they have
Yeah,
so
they're
much
just so
talent from head
well
to tails,
balanced. That's what I mean.
and it's gonna be difficult for the Cowboys to kinda sneak out a win there if they can. It might even be a blowout too. It could be go the opposite way where the Eagles just literally walk all over them, and it's like, "This is the primetime game you wanted?"
Mhm. Mhm. Is this what you wanted? Oh, man, yeah, and, again, the whole thing about the streaming services always bothers me. I know
Yep.
you're probably not as big as, you don't care as much, but,
No.
I'm a stickler here, and, the
Jim.
first game's gonna be free here on YouTube for
Yep.
everybody, so you get to watch that in Brazil, and then there's gonna be 3 Christmas games now too. Again, how do you feel
This is
about
that I
Christmas
mean,
having
to be honest, that's
Thanksgiving?
kinda crazy.
Mhm.
Like, now we're adding more games on Christmas. Literally, this is the statement from the NFL to the NBA. "Fuck you, we're taking
Yeah,
over."
they're saying
That's
it to
basically what it
everybody.
is.
And we talked about it with the whole statement with the fact that, with Trump getting involved too, and how they're stepping on the toes of high school football, college football, doing Saturdays in, December around there too. And there's a stance there, fine line. They're tiptoeing around a lot of
Mhm.
these different things. And I look at it from the player's point of view to where you had your schedule, you had your certain amount of games, you sign a contract, you play this many, and now they're saying, all right, we're getting rid of some of these practices or some of these, preseason games, but we're going to add more games to the season. We're going to stretch out the playoffs. And then now we're going to make you play on holidays, like more holidays. And we're not
Yeah,
only one team, it's
ridiculous.
now it's multiple teams. So now all of you guys are all involved on this. And it seems like the players have kind of, been taking a back seat on all this. And like, here you go. This is what you're getting.
Until the new CBA agreement has to be agreed upon, that's going to change everything because for all
And the
these,
international games on top of it.
yeah, for all the points that you were making about it, what if you're going to start stepping on toes of college, of high school, Friday nights maybe? Eh, Here's the issue with it all is if you start doing that, then you're going to run to a lot more problems with players because now when the new CBA has to be agreed upon, guess what? Now you know what? We asked for this much. Now it's going to go up. It's just going to
Mhm.
keep going up. We want more and more money now because if you're going to keep changing the schedule on us, now we're playing more holidays than ever before. We're playing different nights than ever before. And with a cherry on top, now we're playing international games more than ever in the NFL. So just with all that said, it's going to lead to higher asking prices to sign players. The CBA, the NFLPA, the Players Association, is now going to ask for even more from the NFL because hey, you guys want to keep now adding regular season games and then tweaking playoffs because that's been a point of conversation too. Maybe changing the playoff, schematics and how they're going to handle that, or on top of that, what's gonna stop? When is it gonna stop? Because here's the problem is right now it's regular season games.
Mhm.
What if in 5 years from now it's international playoff games? It's games where you're traveling over to China to play an AFC championship game instead of staying in the States where the sport should be for special occasions. So
Right.
we're treading very deep water and we keep seem to be going deeper and deeper into the deep end here. I don't know. At some point, the owners have to speak up and say, "All right, it was fun for a little bit, but we need to pull the reins back a little more."
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I could see that happening with this. That's the questions we always ask when we see these different things in the different international games moving forward. And there's a bunch of other markets that they didn't bring up. They're going to release probably next year too. Um,
Mhm.
a bunch of different. Greece is one of them too as well. I mean, we've seen that. Joe, again, uh some big games I guess we'll find out, as the season unfolds and whether they become big, because the thing is
Yeah.
too, they announce some of these games but then they get flexed out too, depending on
Well,
how these teams pan out, so you can only guess so much. And I know they go
right.
through an algorithm to kind of set this whole
Yeah.
schedule up anyways, and they're like, hey, this and this, but I don't
I get
get
a
how
kick out.
this algorithm works if all of a sudden a lot of these same teams, if you look at strength of schedule too,
Mhm.
how they call strength of a lot of these same teams
Yeah.
get this easiest schedules and these other all the time. And it's like, how, if you're getting this balanced formula that you're supposed to be using, this is happening all the time? Or is this your
Yeah.
formula? It's like, let's get
Right.
these guys, on the bottom every time. And let's keep these guys
Yeah.
relevant out here and have a chance to perform here.
Exactly. And one other thing that I'll say is they're making it a big deal, having the Chicago Bears on prime time
Right. I saw that
when
too.
the Bears I understand the Bears have a really good defense, they do,
Hmm.
and they have improved their offense, but based off of what Caleb Williams did last year, I don't know how you could even hype that game up as much as they are currently. There's some questionable games that they're trying to really hype up and say, "Oh, this is gonna be an awesome matchup." When it comes time, I don't know, like, we haven't seen proof of the Bears becoming this, like, next level contender. And that's kind of what they're trying to make them out to be already because Ben Johnson is there, the new head
Hmm.
coach, you know, working with
Yeah,
Caleb Williams. This is going to
exactly.
be amazing. So
Hmm.
I don't know. We'll have to wait and see for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely what they're trying to jump ahead with. We saw it last year.
Yeah.
How many more games did the Jets have on prime time? Just because they
Mhm.
finally were like, all right, we've got a healthy Aaron Rodgers, this team. Here we go. Let's see what happens now. And that kind of just fell flat on their face, I guess, for the whole
Right.
season. They're jumping
Yeah.
on top of it. That's what they feel. Ben Johnson, again, Caleb Williams, second year here with the team, new
Mhm.
offense. They just trying to jump ahead and expect some of these things to happen. But we'll see. We'll see as they keep releasing more. And even as you guys too, let us know they're going to be releasing more tonight or tomorrow night. So let us know, for our next show too, when we talk about it, what games you're excited to see, when it all comes down. So Joe, like you said, last week we talked to AFC odd man out. We had a bunch of different ideas and who was going to go in, who was going to go out. A lot of different conversations who they still have yet to pick up with a lot of these teams and stuff, but it was very compelling. We had some different views and a couple of those actually happened too. So we nailed a few of them too. So
right.
Congratulations to us, and we'll see what happens
right.
with this one moving forward.
Pat ourselves on the back. Good job. Real quick though, I gotta say, for anybody that not tuned into our previous show, Jimmy called it. Davis is going to be visiting the New York Giants wide receiver. Maybe they add him to this roster to kind of bolster it up a little bit. So keep an eye out for that. Jimmy said that Gabe Davis was going to be the cuts. Jacksonville looks like he's going to be visiting the New York Giants.
Yep. And there he is. And Christian Wilkinson there for the wide receiver for your Raiders too. Ended up getting the cut on that one. So, but here we go. Anyway. NFC. Yeah. And that's the thing. Some of these ones, it depends on, you guys can play along with us too. Why not? We're going to go with the AFC East first. And there's different ways to look at it. I mean, because you could say, NFC well, East. This guy is he going to find playing time for me? Yeah, I'm like, well, this guy, he's struggled to try and make the roster to a lot of different times. So he either has a shot or he's not in this one. So that's where I kind of fall with some of these guys. But I've also kind of extended that kind of way of thought, like you had kind of said, like, hey, this guy's battling for a starting job. Maybe they decide to even move on from this guy. And I've seen a couple guys on some of these rosters where I think it's time they should probably try and get out of this, but they really kind of screwed themselves with contracts. And we'll talk about some of those when we go forward here. All right, Joe.
Well,
AFC or NFC East, you want to get into it?
What we learned with contracts already is the fact that they don't matter. The teams, if they're willing to swallow that big pill, and just say, screw it, we'll just eat the guarantees and everything this year and worry about the future later on. So it's almost a unprecedented time in the NFL with teams. There's no longer with that, even with contracts that it seemed to be, there's no way they can cut this guy. And the next thing you know, they do. It's like, oh, all right. So we'll see, man. NFC, we're going to get right into this. Jimmy, you want to head that off?
Sure. Why not? I'll go. I'll start first this time. This one's kind of tough because, again, I don't know if you found it last year or last week when we talked about the AFC West, but I feel like when it's a division, you kind of know too, and you're looking at guys and you're like, man, looking at some of the rosters, you're like, who is the guy kind of out on this one? Because I kind of know all these guys and I'm not sure what, especially when you're looking at the Eagles too, you're like, oh, like, man, who is the odd man out in this one too?
Right.
But for me, when I was
honestly, like, I challenged myself with doing this exercise, and I'm either going to pick a starter that's penciled in right now in the depth chart that I think might get pushed out of it, or I'm going to pick a backup guy who might have bounced around to other teams and now he's landing on yet another team hoping to make it. But okay, after the draft, they loaded up at this position. Maybe they don't make it now. So I'm never going to pick below a backup. So just so everybody knows out there, it might not be realistic, but I feel like it's going to make it entertaining anyway.
Entertaining. Yeah, and I kind of like went in between of that. So this one, like I said, it was tough for me. So we're going to start off with the Cowboys. And I'm going to go with tight end John Stevens Jr. He's struggling due to multiple serious injuries, including 2 ACLs in his left knee. So again, he tore one a while back in 2003, ended his season there. But then again in October 2024, same ACL again while practicing. And now they've added more talent at that position there. So I find it hard for him to try and get back. And it sucks too, because when you look at some of these guys that have a shot to make this roster that are there, and he was kind of on the cusp here, and never getting a shot, and he's young, and you're like, oh man. So I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, this guy ain't gonna make it here. So I'm gonna go with John Stevens Jr. again. It's tough. You're kind of like, who the fuck is that? But
Yeah, because
dude,
he's like
I
fourth
know,
on the depth chart.
yeah, maybe. But
But here's the
that's
thing.
what I'm gonna roll with. You know,
Here's the thing too. So for a guy like John Stevens, I mean, this is something where it was on the team for a couple years, was trying to, crack the line, trying to get playing time. But then when the Cowboys get Jake Ferguson in 22, and then they get Luke
hmm
Schoonmaker in 23,
right.
it's like those guys are shoe-ins from the start already. And then you also got to compete with, Spanford, Brevin Spanford, the tight end who's penciled in as a third guy, kind of like an athletic type guy of a tight end. It's steep competition, and that's kind of like the unfortunate part for some of these players is that even though they may have talent, they may be good, but when teams start to stack that position, it makes it extremely difficult to make the roster. So for
Right,
me,
right. All right,
I'm gonna
Joe.
go. I'm
Who
gonna
you
go a
got?
different route here. I'm gonna go wide receiver, and and they've added to this position group some guys like journeyman Harris Campbell, now formerly an Eagle, comes over. It's interesting to me with this whole scenario. George Pickens gets traded there, and I think that this is the reason why I'm kind of leaning towards this group is because they pull off this trade for George, and they team him up with CeeDee Lamb. They have Jalen Tolbert there, who was a starter last year. They got other guys that they really like, Cavante Turpin, who they really like in the slot, really shifty receiver to get playing time. They're starting playing a significant role. Beyond that, it's a mixed mosh of who shows up any given Sunday, any given practice. Training camp is around the corner. And there's a guy that's kind of a little bit of a journeyman in Jonathan Mingo, who's been from team to team,
Mhm.
never can really kind of get any significant playing time no matter where he goes. And I think this is yet another stop in Dallas where he's going to do what he can to try to make the roster, but I think he falls short. So Jonathan Mingo will be my guy.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, and that's tough too. Like you said, yeah, George Pickens, that's going to make guys slide. Like I didn't like the move just because of that. Because again, I think you've got
Mhm.
Tolbert, you've got Turpin, who's now stretching and then and etching out to make a starting wide receiver spot, not just be that kind of punt returner, kick returner
Right,
specialist. And then Mingo on top of it. So I could see that too.
right.
I mean, I thought about that too. So in this one, you might be surprised too with some of these guys on my list too. I did try and do a little bit of that too, and I didn't go all tight end and running back. So we
Oh,
shall
not this
see
time around?
here with some of these. Not this time around, but I had to sprinkle it in a little bit here. So um,
All right,
all right,
nice.
so the New York Giants for me, but the first two again, I went tight end. I'm going with Greg Dulcich just because again, depth chart, who they added, like you're kind of saying too. If you look at the guys here, Theo Johnson's the guy, but they also got Belly. They love Belly there. And Dulcich kind of slides in. They grab a couple of extra guys too, like
Mhm.
you said, to fill some spot and see what these younger guys can do. And I think just at him to where he is at his career right now too, plus injuries, nagging injuries that he's had throughout his career too, that helps too, and then also drops that he's had too, and catching him, trying to see him
Mhm.
too there be a receiver.
Right.
And I just don't think again he's going to make the squad here too. They got a lot of other talent out there that could potentially here take his spot. Will he be a practice squad guy probably or something? But I just don't see him making the starting um,
Right.
53-man
I get you
roster.
there. I get you there. I'm gonna go a different position group. I'm going with your favorite position group from the AFC, running backs.
That's
After
right.
drafting
Yes.
Cam the Rams Adaboo, after already having
Mhm.
in place Tyrone Tracy Jr., who looked electric last season as a rookie. The guy was phenomenal, is an down back, and now you have an opportunity to bring the Ram to New York. He's going to be your battering ram at short yardage at any point on the football field. A guy who is basically like a human Hulk on the football field. Give me Cam Skabu and Tyrone Tracy Jr. teamed up from week one on, and that's going to leave none other than Devin Singletary to get cut. as a veteran. Gonna have to look for another team if a team is interested to bring him in. They have other guys in Eric Gray who they like as kind of like more of a receiving back, but also now you have a very young run back position group ready to take over. No need to have Devin Singletary anymore. That's my guy, odd man out.
Yeah, and I had thought about that too again, but I don't know. It's like, and I know you say again, money doesn't really matter with some of these things, stuff like that, but that's a heavy cost, dead weight. It would be better if they did it next year. It helps, alleviate some of that, what I mean, in a cap hit. So I'm thinking they still keeping them around this year, and then maybe it's a next year thing. But I agree. I agree with what you're saying. It's just, I don't know, man. I think it was just kind of steep for me, at least, looking at it. But we've seen these things happen though before too. So,
Yeah, that's
all right,
why
let's get to the,
I don't care anymore. Contracts don't
yeah,
matter.
yeah.
When it's
I
time
do
for a
not
guy to go,
care.
it's time for a
He's
guy
got
to
to go.
go.
See ya. Yeah, absolutely, Joe. All right,
And
so
and
now we've
here's
got
the
the
other thing
Eagles.
too.
What's
Here's
up?
the other thing too about this, about the contracts and everything. More teams now are changing their mindset on just eating it this year. Take the
Hmm.
whole guarantees, take the cap hit this year instead of spreading it out, and then you move on the following season. So it's kind of like a new mindset that I think a lot of teams are coming around to. So for guys that are vets or guys that have kind of overstayed their welcome, teams are tending to move on from them, and it's no longer
Yeah.
a surprise like it used to be.
Right. 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 All right. So next we've got the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to go with the safety position and Lewis Seen. And we talked about this guy kind of being a bust here, with that 2022 draft. And he's moved from team to team. And now again, he's found himself on the Eagles, but with the depth that they have there too, again, and his lack of performance and stuff, I really don't see him
Mhm.
really making a spot here, filling a spot here with the depth that the Eagles have, and potentially him again, once again, trying to find another home. And again, they just threw a flyer out there again. Did they find some of these guys out there, free agents? Hey, we'll sign them, see what happens. But with, like I said, the depth that they have, I don't see him making the cut.
Yeah. I'm gonna stay off, but going a different position group. I'm going quarterbacks here. I'm gonna go with Tanner McKee. I think they're gonna move on from Tanner McKee because they've invested in the draft with Kyle McCord, someone that they like to build behind Jalen Hurts. Think he's going to move up in the depth chart. Probably going to end up being a backup for Jalen Hurts. And then beyond that,
Hmm.
they did go for a trade in Dorian Thompson Robinson from the Cleveland Browns. So
Hmm.
I know that they're not going to want to just move on from him after they trade for him. So he's going to make the team. They like Kyle McCord. I think he does well, especially underneath Jalen Hurts. I think it's going to pay off huge dividends for him. And quite honestly, McCord could end up developing into their future starter. But let's face it, it's Hurts for a long time. So it might just be McCord could be a excellent backup for them for years to come. But I think he would be the better quarterback over Tanner McKee. I think McKee's time in Philly is over.
Hmm. Hmm. All right. Yeah, I looked at that too. Again, I looked at quarterbacks in there. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I go with that one stuff, but we'll see. That's a good one. Next, let's move on to the Washington Commanders. Commanders were very active in free agency. We saw this, so they add a lot of different
Oh yeah.
pieces here, protection, weapons. So it was tough to kind of look and see where I wanted to go with this one, but overall, I'm going with your guy, Cleveland Farrell. I'm going to go with him. They bring him in again too to try and as a veteran depth piece, but this guy has just inconsistent performance throughout his career, injuries on top of it, lack of getting pressure out there. So, he's moved on. Like I said, he was there with, drafted by your Raiders. Now he's here with the Commanders as like kind of like a depth piece, but with some talent too they've added. I feel like I'd rather kind of see what these guys have with their younger guys and see if they do kind of perform and kind of step up to this to where they're a better depth piece with more, like a higher ceiling rather than this guy that's kind of been there. So I'm going with Cleveland Farrell.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Clelin Ferrell would be an easy pick if he didn't show any promise at all when he was with San Francisco. But the fact that he actually had a halfway decent year with the Niners, I think that gives the Washington Commanders hope that they can continue to develop him under their defense. Maybe he fits it better, maybe he doesn't. But finally, for him, I feel like early in his career, the biggest problem when he was with the Raiders is the fact that they kept moving him inside and outside. He never really had a position. They moved him from D tackle to D end to stand up linebacker to rush off the edge. They couldn't make up their minds with the guy. How do you develop a player like that when you continue to move his position? So finally, he's going to stay at the end like he was with the Niners, and I feel like that's kind of helping him stay in the NFL, becoming relevant. For the Washington Commanders, for me, I'm kind of going to go to the tight end position here, and I'm going to go with John Bates. Drafted in 21, guy that's kind of been around for a little while, but they've invested in this tight end group. They still have Zach Ertz. He comes back for another
Mhm.
year. Ben Sinnott, who they drafted in 24, and guys behind him, other young players. They might be preparing to make a youth movement here, guys sticking with these young bucks and continue developing these younger tight ends underneath Zach Ertz. And not to say John Bates is old, but
Yeah, yeah.
he's been around enough to not make a dramatic impact. And when you have guys like Ben Sinnott kind of waiting and chomping at the bit, I feel like it's time to kind of make that move. So for me, Bates ends up getting outplayed.
Yep, yep, I can see that as well. All right, let's move on to the NFC North again, guys out there. I know you guys are watching out there. What do you guys think? Throw some guys out there too. Look ahead and see what you guys think. Who might be a cut or cap casualty here on this one. On top of it, NFC North. Let's go with the Bears. Joe, you want to lead this one off?
My favorite team, the Bears. Can't wait.
Joe Bears.
So so for the Bears, I went with the wide receiving core here because it's kind of getting full there. They drafted Luther
Hmm.
Burden, who I think is going to be a steal for them. Guy who was supposed to be like, if he came out in 23, he's going to be the top wide receiver coming out, no doubt about it. And the fact that he had a down year in 24, comes into the draft, goes way lower than expected for a lot of teams, and then you look at everybody around him. They drafted Luther Burden, they got Roma Dunze, in 24. They got DJ Moore still rocking out there. Also bring in veterans Olamide Zacchaeus. They also bring in Devin
Yep. Okay.
Duvernay,
Yep.
guys that are going to
Hmm.
probably stick around for this roster. That's kind of what's helping me make this decision with Tyler Scott. I feel like he's going to kind of get pushed down this roster so much so that maybe he's just not going to make the cut. And when it's all said and done, there's a lot of talent. I mean, they are was it three six? There's 12 wide receivers deep currently,
Yeah.
and you got other guys all chomping at the bit, even undrafted free agents that are walking on trying to fight their way up the ladder here. So I think it might be time for Tyler Scott to try to find a new home.
Yeah, yeah. I looked at wide receiver in this one too. I looked at Scott again, but I'm going to go around a guy too that's been in the NFL too for a bit, had opportunities, has been a starter at one point too, but just can't get it going. And now on this roster, like you said, with the talent that they've added and stuff, I just don't see him making the cut, and that's Miles Boykins. Um, Again, communication, chemistry has been his big thing too. He struggled to understand and react quick. He's also been identified as needing to improve his route running. You know what I mean? Especially on timing, 3-step drop concepts. So him again with this roster that if you added the talent that's there, like you said, drafting a wide receiver, second year with Roma Dudze, a guy that's trying to make a cut and still kind of make a career here, but I think it's just too little, too late, and he's on his way out. So I'm going Miles Boykin. All right, Joe, what do you got here next for the Detroit Lions?
The Detroit Lions, I went defense on this one. They seem to keep continuing to build this defense, and they want to make sure that this never becomes a weakness once again. I think by doing that, they bring in big stud corner DJ Reed, teaming him up with Kirby Joseph, teaming him up with Brian Branch, Terry Arnold. Now they have a formidable secondary in place. And then what that does is pushes everybody down and increases the competition level heading into training camp. And there's going to be some guys that end up getting cut for this reason. I have Khalil Dorsey, formerly of the 49ers in 22, comes over there, is going to be trying to make this team, but they've done such a great job of adding younger pieces through the draft, and now it's getting to the point where they're getting their guys in place, and they no longer need these free agent acquisitions. So Khalil Dorsey, corner
All right.
for
All
the
right.
Lions, is
Interesting
my
corner.
odd man.
Yeah. Yeah. I looked at the corner situation too, and even some of the issues that they've had there too. And that's why I kind of went away from there a little bit. I thought about it, but again, I'm looking at this wide receiver room that again is just so deep. That I feel like again, some of these guys are just going to kind of just drop off. And I'm going with Malik Taylor, formerly of the Jets. And again, struggling to get onto the field, injury issues. Hasn't established himself to be like one of those, top receivers here. He always has to be in a competition with somebody and just has not panned out really at all. They bring him onto the roster here to try and do something. Say, hey, maybe we can do something here and make, a push. But with so many guys that are there now too,
Mhm.
especially with Jameson Williams being healthy for once here and performing like he did last season and elevating him all the way up too. And Raymond even doing well when he's been called upon to be in there and stuff. I just don't think there's going to be
Yeah.
spots for guys like this. And again, this is why they bring some of these
Now,
guys
Jim,
in there, Joe. You know what I mean? They're like, hey,
before
let's
we
throw a
move
shot at
on
this guy
from the
so what happens.
Lions,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say, remember we heard the rumors about moving on from Jameson Williams? Remember we heard the rumors about them possibly trading him, and it didn't
Mm-hmm.
happen? That could be a shock,
Yeah.
as if Jameson
Yeah.
Williams ends up getting cut because they're tired of his injuries that keep happening every single year. You know, I don't see it happening because he's so young, and they're like, "Well, we didn't get to trade him, so might as well hold on to him," right? But it wouldn't absolutely shock me with all the rumors around his name, even getting the backing from Dan Campbell and saying of how good of a young man he is, and they'd love to keep him on the roster. Just something to watch out for, as we head into training camp.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Next, we've got the Green Bay Packers. Joe, what do you think about the Packers?
Packers, this might surprise some people, but we talk about Jameson Williams being injured, but here's another player that's
Ooh.
always injured a lot.
Mm-hmm. I think
And
I know who you're going to say.
honestly was drafted in 22 in the second round, thinking that this is going to be their X receiver, their outside guy, the go-to, the playmaker, and Christian Watson, a guy who's been injured all the time. Packers fans are absolutely
Mm-hmm.
furious with this guy. He just never can stay on the football field. And then when he is on the field, half the time drops the easy catch. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are we doing here in Green Bay? So what did Green Bay do this year? Look at what they drafted. They went in the first round. They invested in that. Matthew Golden, the
Mm-hmm.
fastest receiver coming out of the draft, a guy who they have a ton of confidence in. And then they also went and double dipped and went into the third round and got Savion Williams, who is the player comparison for him is Cordarrelle Patterson because he's literally the same dude. He's not the smartest tack in the box by any means, but if you could at least tell him, like, just what route to run, this guy could be a juggernaut of a receiver. All the physical traits in the world, has size, speed, and catching ability. He just needs to be told where to go. So, if they can work with him, now you've got 2 guys that could end up becoming starters for you. Golden is seen as a immediate starter, and that's why I feel like with guys like Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed still there,
Mm-hmm.
Dontavian Wicks, who they really like, um, Watson might actually get pushed out because of all the injuries this guy just keeps getting over and over and over. He's my odd man out of the pack.
Ooh, I like that one. I looked at him too, and I was thinking exactly what you were thinking too. But I don't know. I mean, it could be. I think so too. I think that could be a possibility. But I went with another wide receiver who, again, has only really found major success with the Chiefs. And besides that, he's tried other spots here and there and not really panned out. And now he finds himself with the Green Bay Packers. And
Mhm.
I don't see him cracking the depth chart
Mecole?
either. And that's Nicole Hardman. Yep. Yep. And again, he's older too. So it's like, okay, so I figure with Watson, I'm like, yes, he has been injured, stuff like that. But I mean, now he's just slid down on the depth chart. They could put him in every now and then as a piece just further down. Hardman, I was like, all right, you tried him out again. He's older. I'm like, all right, well, let's just cut our losses. They ain't gonna really work out for us. See you later, and have him free agency again. So
Here's
I'm
here's
going with Nicole Hardman.
the thing about Mecole Hardman. That
Mhm.
addition, I don't think he's there to take reps at receiver. I think they brought him in to be a returner, to
Mhm.
be honest. So, it's something
Oh,
to watch out for.
hmm. Yeah, that is something to look out for. So I'm wondering if they do decide to sprinkle him in there. You never know with this offense. All right, so let's move on here now to finish up the NFC North and the Vikings, Joe. Vikings, what do you got here?
Well, I went to the tight end position on this one.
Yeah.
The Vikings, they have a really good roster overall. They've definitely kind of added to that. The offensive line has been, improved by bringing in free agents, drafting Donovan Jackson at left guard. And then even defense, the defense is rock solid too. You could go defensive and find somebody to pick, but I ended up going with a backup tight end in this one. TJ Hawkinson playing really well for Minnesota, kind of like one of the go-to primary targets. But I think after drafting Gavin Bartholomew, I think, and also bringing in as an undrafted free agent, which I don't know how this guy went undrafted, doesn't make sense to me. But tight end from Georgia, Ben Urasek, guy is gonna he could end up becoming the future tight end, the starter. Has tremendous athletic ability. So with all that being said, you got some young guys up and coming. I think that's gonna end up pushing out a guy by like Josh Oliver, who got there via free agency for them. I think Josh
Hmm.
Oliver is gonna be the cut, and then all these younger guys are gonna be stepping up into the depth chart and becoming, you know, not necessarily big time playmakers this year, but they're definitely going to be involved.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, this one was tough too, again, because I was looking at the depth chart where we're gonna lie, where like kind of where they're deeper, who maybe has a chance to crack a spot. And again, this is probably an easy one. I kind of just nipped at maybe, and I went with Jonathan Harris, defensive end. Again, he's been able to get playtime here and there, but when he's out there, didn't really have an opportunity, didn't really perform well for where he even a draft position where he was a few years back. And I think with that spot, I think you're expected to do a little better and just hasn't been able to crack a starting spot so much now that they've added talent and he's just dropped further down the depth chart here. So I'm going with Jonathan Harris here, defensive end, with a defense that's pretty nice too right now for them.
Hey, as long as the rookies pan out.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the truth. That's true. That's the truth too. That's the thing too, and that's what I've kind of done is like left space for rookies kind of to grow because it's easy to be even like, hey, this guy was drafted in the sixth round, or he's an undrafted, free agent here that they grabbed here, and you're like, okay, well that guy's maybe going to be cut anyway, so you don't want to go with that. So you kind of want to go for that guy. It's like there's some of these guys that we looked at already drafted second round, third round, and that's when you draft in the second round, third round, you're expected to kind of be a starter at that point. You know what I mean? And if you're falling down on the depth chart already after a few years and you're like
Mhm.
25, 26, 27,
They didn't pan
that's a
out.
problem. That's a problem,
They didn't pan out.
and that's what some of these guys are when we go and look at it. All right, so let's move to the NFC South, Joe. Your brothers, Atlanta Falcons, they added a bunch of different talent too, trying to make
Mhm.
a push here to help Michael Penix Jr. as well. So what do you got here for the Falcons and potentially who's going to be the odd man out?
Honestly, like it could be very simple. You could go wide receiver because of how deep they are in terms of numbers, but there's no real clear cut like players that are gonna like, besides the starters, Darnell Mooney, Drake London, Ray McLeod is even penciled as a starter.
Mhm.
Beyond that, it's a mess.
Yeah.
It's just a mess of names that you don't even really not sure who's gonna make the team. I kind of expect Jamal Agnew,
Yes.
to kinda make this team, Catterell, Hodge, I expect him to make the team, but, beyond
Mhm.
that, it's like, I don't know, like, these guys they're not really doing anything, so who knows? The Atlanta Falcons could quite honestly dip into free agency and be good that way, other than having some of these guys that have either been around the numerous teams, like Philip Dorsett is also trying to make the team, another team again, so
Yep.
I kind of went with offensive line on this one. I like Jake Matthews at left tackle a lot. He's their go-to. He's their starter. Let's face it. But their
Yeah.
backup to me, former Charger, former Saint. I was never impressed with this guy watching him play. Storm Norton. I think
Mhm.
this might be his time. Might be up in Atlanta. They might end up moving on from him at the end of training camp because they took a shot with Jack Nelson, a
Mhm.
guy from Wisconsin, a guy who literally, when you look at this dude, he is a mountain, and I mean, he's like a white gorilla. The guy is just
Mhm.
this mean, nasty type of offensive lineman. He's gigantic. I mean, he's super tall, got the size, over 320 pounds, and he's got some athleticism to his game. He needs some refinement for sure, but that's why he could easily beat out Storm Norton and continue to develop under Jake Matthews and could honestly develop into their future starting tackle. So I think he ends up pushing him out of that spot there.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I can see that too as well, Joe. I looked at that position too. I wasn't sure, and then but then when I was looking at guys, and kind of guys who again, some of these I guess it's unfair for me too. Some of them are guys who get suffered injuries and can't get out of it stuff, but I went with Tyrone Wheatley Jr. And again, a guy who was drafted by the Patriots. And now he's fallen here now to the Falcons here to give a shot here. But again, an injury didn't really pan out. Big dude. I mean, solid. And again, and he's got, his father was a great Michigan running back, so I mean, he's got that in his blood, but bigger dude. So now he's an offensive lineman, but kind of again coming off that injury, but then still not, cracking the top spot. And now with the team here where they have the depth that they have, I don't see him, panning out. Again, it's a flyer they took out on him. They're gonna see where he goes with this, but I could see him also just not making the roster. All right, next we've got the Panthers. Panthers, this one for me was kind of tough because again, a very young team.
Yeah.
And again, coming off of a terrible season again, and see who's actually good. I mean, and even looking at their wide receiving core, I'm like, man, like these are their starters now. I'm like, who do you cut then? I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
so this one was a little tougher for me, but what do you think about with the Panthers, Joe?
So you say youth, right? And there is a
Mhm.
youth movement going on in Carolina,
Mhm.
and wouldn't surprise me because they brought in, especially you bring up wide receivers, they bring in David Moore, which was an interesting signing. A guy
Mhm.
who is a veteran, has been around for a little bit of time, who can still instill the leadership role at that position group. Why have Adam Thielen around anymore? Is it time to finally close the
Yeah.
curtain on Adam Thielen? Move on from him because now that you have David Moore, who is younger than Thielen, who can still be that leader in the locker room with all these young wide receivers that Bryce Young I know is licking his chops to throw to. I mean, Tedero McMillan, they invest heavily on that position right there with that guy who's going to be kind of like your all around juggernaut type wide receiver, gigantic wingspan, tall, has speed, has burst, and you team him up with Xavier Legette. I mean, come on. Like Legette is still developing as a wide receiver, but I feel like this could be a tandem that could be really dangerous this year. And then he didn't stop there in the draft. in the 6th round, they take Jimmy Horn Jr. That's right,
Mhm.
the son who of Bad Moon. You know what I mean? The guy that was a bad boy in the NFL was a very good receiver. Jimmy Horn Jr. is going to enter into this thing, and I'll tell you this right now: we knew that running backs, we knew that some wide receivers slid more than they should have. Jimmy Horn is no exception. This kid is electric. He's quick. He's got speed. I think he could easily fit into that slot role, move on from Thielen, get rid of his salary, move on from the age, and start with the new.
Interesting. I like that one. Definitely. This was again tough for me looking at guys. I could see Thielen. I mean, I get that too again because
And one other
what do you got?
thing.
What's up?
They also brought in, which was interesting, Hunter Renfro,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
has been out of football for quite some time, comes back in. Again, he's probably a long shot to make the roster, given his concussions
Mm.
in his past career. But if he can kind of get those under control, maybe with the new guidelines, with the new helmets and everything like that, maybe he can stick in here because he was one of the best receivers to run routes in the entire NFL
Oh
at
yeah.
one point in time. So if he can have any kind of production like that before, he might end up sticking there too.
Right, right. I think that would be a nice spot just in that slot to try and find some moves with just with his route running, and to help that offense if it doesn't move, you know what I mean? Just short
Right.
and immediate passes, get it down to him. Yeah, so I looked around different spots and I ended up settling with my guy, linebacker Boogie Basham, which I know from the Giants,
Who the
and he
hell's
was
that?
very, very disappointing again, and it wasn't exactly asked to be the guy, but just with injuries that compounded all the time, he ended up being our starter at times, and uh, just inconsistent playing. He had his opportunity to do something here, and I don't know if it was scheme or just being mismatches at the time when he was out there, but um, not very good. And now with this team that he's on here, again, you've got a lot of other guys vying for this spot. You've got some depth here, and like I said, I think they bring him in here. It's a low risk thing. See what happens, but I can see him
Mhm.
not making the cut after all this is said and done. All right, next, we've got the Saints, New Orleans Saints here. We've heard a lot of different things, and I think the Derek Carr retiring opens a lot of different conversations up, a lot of doors.
Yeah,
Just
like
because I
which
think with this one, when you think of guys that don't want to be there now anymore, maybe, you know what I mean? Or maybe the situation with them, do they say, all right, well, this is the situation we're in this season. I think I feel like if I'm Kellen Moore, I feel like if I had Derek Carr, we were vying for at least the division. We had to go and try and push for the division. That was our first step. When you don't
Mhm.
now, and now you're starting either Spencer Rattler sophomore year or your new quarterback here with his freshman year, uh, rookie year, you know what I'm saying? We're in a different spot. So veterans that have been there that even kind of re-signed, that even wanted out kind of before that's just decided, hey, we're sticking around. They might voice their opinion now and be like, yo, I'm out. Or even the team might say, even by week 6, we got to figure something out and let's dump one of these guys. So this made it really interesting for me when I looked at this.
So, I mean, I think with the mindset of the Saints, by doing what they did in the draft and everything, they're still going to compete. I know the quarterback position doesn't really have an answer as of yet because it's unknown. We've seen Spencer Rattler last year struggle at times, and things didn't look too good for him. But again, he was a rookie quarterback making mistakes that rookie quarterbacks do. So maybe he's kind of developing. Maybe he's going to get better, especially with this competition now. Tyler Shook, who honestly, by all accounts, if let's just say he didn't have any concerning injuries in his college career, and the fact that he's played college for so long, is seen as a older prospect, mid-20s already. But I think Tyler Shook overall is pretty close to being an NFL starter. Like he has all the attributes, the size, he's got mobility, he's got arm, he's got accurate processing information, going through his reads. He's got all. So I think the Saints kind of feel comfortable going forward with Tyler Shook, but the problem still remains is can he stay healthy at the NFL level, which is the most physical level of football you can play. So the fact that he
Mhm.
was injured in college as easily as he was, had a few surgeries, and the fact that of his age, even though he's mid-20s, there's still gotta be concern there as well. So, the competition for this starting job is really but it's not Jake Haener is involved. Jake Haener is seen as a backup at this point.
Yeah.
But Spencer Rattler, how much better developed is he at this point going into training camp? Tyler Shook, can he stay healthy at the NFL level? And can he beat out Spencer Rattler? So,
Mhm.
the New Orleans Saints overall have invested in wide receiver, not
Mhm.
to the not to the level that I thought they would. I thought they would
Right.
attack it in the draft, and instead they bring in Brandon Cooks, an older, kind of deep threat veteran.
Yep.
I thought they would at least draft another receiver, and we just never saw that. So I'm a little concerned at receiver still. Remains, how healthy they can stay. But their offensive line, they've definitely improved. So that's gonna help
Yeah.
out no matter what quarterback they decide on. It's gonna help them out. They're gonna have a really good offensive line in front of them to protect them.
Mhm.
So I do think this quarterback competition is gonna be really interesting to watch to see who kinda outdoes who as we get closer to the end of training camp.
Yeah, definitely. So who'd you end up picking as the guy who's not gonna make it here?
Oh, for me, I went defense on this
Yeah.
one. So I didn't go, I stayed away from wide receiver, obviously, because there's really not a whole lot there. Um,
Mhm.
but I went defense, and I think the D line they've definitely invested in D line in the draft. Instead of wide receiver, they went defense a lot. Linebacker Danny
Mhm.
Stutzman, who I think honestly is going to play a huge role this year. I don't think he's going to be a starter, but I think he's going to be involved in that rotation. Jonas Sanker, the safety. I think if Tyrann Mathieu goes down with injury, like we've seen him do in recent past, he could fill that spot nicely. And then you go D line, where you got a veteran in Nathan Shepard, who I feel like might get outplayed and he might lose his job. He is going to be my odd man out because they drafted Vernon Broughton, who I think is in the third round, who is going to be honestly could be a starter for them. Like
Mhm.
he's going to be that impactful. A guy who is a nemesis in college is going to continue his vicious ways in the NFL. And then a guy who's kind of lower on the totem pole, but I could see him also getting some playing time this year. Fadil Diggs from Syracuse, the D end. So,
Mhm.
with that being said, I think that's going to push Nathan Shepard out of a role here.
Right, right. Yeah, and I mean, I looked around at different spots. I wasn't sure about, a lot of different things. I looked at Taysom Hill because Taysom Hill is
Not there anymore.
oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, it looks like they still have him. They still have him here on the depth chart.
He's not there though.
Oh, looks like they picked him
A
up.
free agent went to Green Bay.
Oh, yeah, looks like that's weird. Looks like they brought him back though from Green Bay. I don't know. All right. On the most recent one, it showed him on there. All right, because I was gonna say that contract isn't gonna
Yeah,
work there.
yeah, it says on the roster. It says with Green Bay.
With Green Bay. Okay. Well, I didn't pick him either way, but I went with Dante Pettis. Again, I know him again from the Giants here, and he's traveled from different uh,
Yeah,
you know, teams all around. And again,
yeah.
despite even having disparities uh at wide receiver at times, especially with the injuries that they've had, I really don't see him, especially at his age now, cracking this roster at all and stuff. So I think after all it's all said and done, they find who lies, all the dominoes fall into play.
Mhm.
I think he's going to be the odd man out in this wide receiver core. I think they've settled on some guys, and like you said, they did bring in Brandon Cooks, and I think that's going to be the spot here. That's going to be their starter here. So again, he doesn't even have a shot to get on this roster here. So I'm going to go with Dante Pettis. All right, next moving
Yeah,
on
and he's
to
already
the
lower on the depth chart as it is.
and he's already it's like I said, once you got younger guys too, you have an opportunity to see even what they
Mhm.
have here. Again, you're just a
Yeah.
guy that's floating around to try and make a spot somewhere, and you're not going to do it. It's nice, sounds nice and all, but it's just not going to happen. Next, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Sterling Shepard is who I have here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Wide
Mhm.
receiver again. See, I went with wide receiver heavy a lot this one in the NFC. But you look at their roster too and how deep it is too. And I feel like again, yes, he connected with Baker Mayfield, and
Baker
yes, they
Mayfield?
know each other
Yeah.
from way back and stuff. But
Mhm.
again, the guy is injury prone. Yes, he finally was able to split some time last year and kind of have some production here due to some injuries due to Mike Evans and stuff and Chris Godwin. But I don't see it lasting as long again, too. He's older, too. So I'm like, I'd rather give these other guys still some shot. You still got Ryan Miller there, too. Again, second year, 2 years in, and now is going to be his next third season here. Give him another shot to crack, the top here. I don't really think Sterling Shepard's like one of your guys to be a starter, which they kind of have him penciled in right now.
Yeah, I don't see Ryan Miller even making the team. Sterling Shepard to me
Mhm.
is my odd man out as well, Jimmy. Um,
Oh,
it's
look at
too
that. Ding, ding, ding.
easy. It's just way too easy for him to lose his job here because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do what they always do in the draft. They draft best available talent. And it just happened to be Emeka Ibuka coming out of Ohio State. They end up investing in him, and he's penciled
Mm-hmm.
in already as the starter. Now, that doesn't mean that Sterling
Mm-hmm.
Shepard is automatically out, is going to get cut, but when you look at what the receiving core looks like right now with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin when he's healthy, Emeka Ibuka, like I mentioned before, Jalen McMillan, who played a significant role last year as a rookie, and they also have Trey Palmer. People seem to forget about
Yeah,
Trey
Trey
Palmer
Palmer
all the
there. Yep.
time. He's going to end up being another favorite. I just know it of Baker Mayfield. So when you put those five in front of Sterling Shepard already, and the fact that they took a shot at Tez Johnson, who is but it's never been done before at the NFL level, taking a 156-pound wide receiver, and him playing a significant role, let alone making the roster and but he is one of these difference makers with his acceleration and quickness. Again, it's gonna be a concern to see if he can hold up at the NFL level, and that's why he went in the 7th round. But man, if that kid pans out, bye-bye Sterling. It's gonna be that simple. So, I think that the writing is on the wall in Tampa Bay, even though this might, it's not gonna make Baker Mayfield super upset, but he might be a little bit disappointed if his boy ends up nonetheless. This is the NFL for a reason. It's next man up mentality, and, I think it's time for Sterling to move on.
Yep, yep, I agree there. There we go. We agreed on one. So we get one a show. That's it. So we're done now for the night. Next we got the
That's
NFC NFC West and the Arizona Cardinals. Joe, who do you got for the Cardinals here?
For the Arizona Cardinals, this was difficult. I say this is the one team that I
Yeah,
had a very difficult time picking the odd man out in the parameters that I'm sticking to, either start
right.
or backup. It was very difficult because this is a Cardinals roster that doesn't have a ton around it. It
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't have a super solid roster from top to bottom. Receiving core to me is still a weakness. I understand they got Marvin Harrison, but they got Zay Jones. Okay, it's just an okay wide receiver at this point. Michael Wilson
Yep.
in and out of the lineup. Greg Dortch, who's a nice everybody expected him to be. And then you look into the defense, and it's like, man, they added Walter Nolan, who I think is going to be excellent for them on the D line, but there's just not a lot of guys that I can say, okay, this guy's definitely getting cut. But that's why it kind of brought me to nose tackle, to be honest. For the first time
Mm-hmm.
this year, I'm going nose tackles getting cut.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
going Bilal Nichols, uh, back up to Dalvin Tomlinson. And I think that they have other guys that are that are younger that they might push up in this role. And I think Bilal, to be honest, Bilal Nichols is, I'm surprised he's even on a roster, to be honest with you. So I think
Yeah.
this might be his time to get removed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. This one was a tough one for me too. And again, I just kind of looked at depth again and what they've been able to do, who they've been using. And I'm not gonna give up on James Conner too. Still, he's still performing at a decent level. They got
No,
Trey
no.
Benson there. So they took a stab at Michael Carter. He still hasn't been able to get a real role for this team in the Cardinals. He did play for the
Mhm.
Jets a while back, but again, injuries limited him there. He had a back injury that sidelined him for a few games here. So maybe that was something too, that maybe it's still a nagging injury that's still around there. That's just why he can't do that. But he's a young guy. It seemed like even when you saw him, even with the Jets, like he had something there. But just can't seem to crack a roster spot. And with some of the depth that they got here too, and adding some more players, again, for me, I think it's a shot that he's going to try and make like third on the depth chart, but I could see him being a guy that's going to get washed away here.
Gotcha.
All right, next we've got the Los Angeles Rams, Joe. The Rams with this one. This one's a tough two one because some of the additions they've made, some of the guys that Cooper Kupp's not there anymore too on wide receivers. So looking at the depth on defense, you know what I mean, with how many good players they have there. So I mean, it's tough to see who might fall in this one. But what do you think?
I think it's going to go right down to the slot wide receiver position. I think the backup Xavier Smith is going to end up being the odd man out for the Rams when it's all said and done. Like you said, they bring in a lot of competition at that position as well. Britton Covey, formerly of the
Mm,
Eagles, comes over. Looks like he's going to be uh, one of these kind of low tier wide receivers that might end up making the roster, along with guys like Quintez Cephas, who has been on a couple
mm-hmm.
different teams but still has some talent there. So I think Xavier Smith is going to be the odd man out in the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one was tough too because I even looked at what the depth that they've had there too, Cephas and stuff like that. So that was tough for. But I went on defensive side just because, again, and I went with Kyer Thomas again, a guy who again has struggled to try and make rosters here up and down off the practice squad, just trying to find his way and just again had opportunities, but never really panned out. So again, with trying to crack this depth chart with what they have here and the talent, I just don't see it happening here. So I think he's going to end up being one of the guys that they're just going to let go. Next, we've got the San Francisco 49ers, Joe. 49ers, a little bit of a turnaround too as well. They let a few different
Yeah.
players go. And I was on defensive and offense. They just paid George Kittle, made him the highest paid tight end out there. So what do you
Mhm.
where they go?
So with now Robert Sala kind of rejoining the 49ers, he's going to
Mm-hmm.
mold this defense into his vision. And they started very heavily in the draft. They utilized a lot of their picks, and six to be exact, all guys with potential to start at any given time. And we saw last year the weakness of the D tackle position. So they end up adding a couple of guys there with talent. Alfred
Mm-hmm.
Collins, who's a big nose tackle, very strong guy out of Texas. CJ West, a guy who is another kind of like a bowling ball D tackle from Indiana who has some speed and could potentially give you some pass rush um, up 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 the middle for you. So they invest there. They got their D end and Michael Williams to team him up with Nick Bosa. So you could see that Robert Sala's vision is definitely in the trenches, and then they sprinkled in a couple of, defensive backs in the later rounds. 3rd round, they take Upton Stout, who was one of my favorite corners, and a safety by the name of Marquez Sigil. Uh, but they are so deep at safety looking at it. Richie Grant from Atlanta, they sign. Jason Pinnock from the Giants, they
Mm-hmm.
sign. Um, and with Malik Mustafa, who has been injured, is still working his way back. I almost was ready to pull the trigger on cutting one of these safeties, but instead I went
Mm-hmm.
with a corner because looking at the corners that they have, they're pretty rock solid. I mean,
Mhm.
honestly, Demondre Lenore, Bernardo Green, who they drafted last year, Trey Brown. So with having those starting positions already kind of locked down, I went to the backup and Darrell Luter Jr., who has been there for a couple years, but now with all this influx of secondary and influx in defense, he might actually end up being the odd man out when it's all said and done.
Oh wow. Okay. Interesting. So yeah, I mean, I looked at that too. I looked all around looking at the different spots. And I found it was funny with some of these guys too. When you're looking at injuries that guys are still nagging, trying to get over right now too. And you're like, well, how's that going to come into play? Is this guy going to kind of sneak up here? If that leads into next season, if this person's not ready to go, what would that bring?
Right.
And I kind of looked at the wide receiver position again. They've
Mhm.
Debo's not there anymore. I mean, you're expecting that Brandon Ayuk is still going to be the guy there too, and hopefully he can perform better for them. Again, he's dealing with some injuries, so they grabbed a few
Right.
different guys there too. But I'm looking at a guy who has performed before, been a starter for a team, and again now kind of getting a little older, but still playable. But you've got other guys looking for spots to where I could maybe see a guy sneaking in there and maybe
Mhm.
taking his spot from him. But I'm going to go with Russell Gage. How about Russell
Okay.
Gage here? Former Falcon, and he's been able to perform, like I said, at a high level before, but again, since then, you haven't really seen it again. So now he's going to be trying to vie for a spot here, and to where they have a lot of different talent here, and I feel like they might go in a different direction here. So I say he's probably the odd man out in this one. All right, next, finally here, as we finish up with the NFC, we've got the NFC West and the Seattle Seahawks here. Joe, Seattle, what do we got here to finish it off?
I went with quarterback in this one because after they invested in the third round
Mhm.
Jalen Milrow looks pretty good in camp so far in the OTAs, and really he could, if they develop him the correct way, this guy could end up being the steal quarterback of the draft. Guy has phenomenal athletic ability. If you're able to kind of fix the mechanics in his footwork to get him more accurate with short and intermediate passes, then this guy could be electrifying for them in the future. But in the immediate future, they signed Sam Darnold, so that's their starter going into this
Mhm.
season. I think that Drew, even though he just signed in Seattle as the backup, had been there before. I think that he's gonna be pushed out of this spot. I think the Seattle Seahawks going into the season, much like a lot of other teams, are gonna just go with 2 quarterbacks, and that's gonna push Drew Lock out. Jalen Milroe is gonna lock in that backup position.
All right. Yeah, I looked at that too, and I'm like, I don't know. It's again, we're looking at it from different perspectives. I can see him getting pushed out, and like Milrow maybe again get to be that spot. So then maybe he's third on the depth chart because I don't see them even getting rid of another quarterback. I see him just maybe sliding to the third spot.
A lot of teams
Just
don't keep 3
because
quarterbacks anymore.
I know I get it. I get it. And
Especially
maybe
now you
that's the
have
case.
the emergency roster
Right.
exemption
Right.
where you have a 3rd quarterback kind of, like, sitting there, and to be
Hmm.
honest with you, they know Drew Lock. They know that he's not gonna be a guy to win them games. So,
Yep.
if they have to in a pinch, you bring in Milrow who can also run the ball. I feel like that's gonna be the direction that they head.
Yep. All right. So now for me, I went with tight end Eric Saubert. And again, you've got Noah Fant there still. You've got more guys here on the depth chart too. For them, AJ Barner, who played well for them. They drafted Elijah Arroyo here in the
Mhm.
second round here. So a
Oh,
guy that
steal.
they brought in free agency. Yeah. So I mean, so the guy they bring in free
Dude.
agency had some good games for San Francisco, but again, now I don't see him fitting on this roster here. So I think
No,
Arroyo's going to
I
jump
gotta
up
tell
here.
you
Fant's going to slide down. So I thought even Fant might be your guy that's going to be
I gotta tell
slow
you,
down.
Elijah Arroyo is gonna end up being the starter. They're
Hmm.
just he's got too much talent. Noah Fant, let's face it, is a one-trick pony. He's not a blocking
Right.
tight end. He's just a receiving threat. But Elijah Arroyo is
Hmm.
that guy. He reminds me a lot of Jimmy Graham back when he was
Hmm.
with the Saints. This is a guy who's very versatile. He's got tremendous size, and the speed that he has to go with the size, it just doesn't make any sense, much like Jimmy Graham. So you could put him in the slot. You could have him inline, offline. Like there's a lot of things that you can do. You can be really creative with Arroyo. And I think that in the end, you might actually see Fant end up being the backup and Arroyo starts his rookie year.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I looked at that and I thought even the same thing, like with Fant taking a step back because Arroyo, I think, is going to jump up there. Fant's,
Yes, sir.
getting older, just not performing. So,
Yes, sir.
and that's, so that there you go. So there's Seattle. There's the NFC odd man out. We made it through it all, and who knows? We'll see. Time will tell if through our crystal ball, if this happens, some of these guys are out there and stuff like that. And that's the fun part about this part of the season now, Joe. Camps are starting. Guys are showing up. There's already questions like, oh, did you see the throw with this guy? How that happened? Or look at this and blah, 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 and this and this. And so we're going to get all kinds of information from mini camps and stuff. I'm excited to get into this, and we're going to have more guys on the show too. We got a couple interviews lined up. So sit tight for that, you guys too. So Joe, tell everybody how they can support the show.
We want you guys to become part of the Blitz Nation. Hey, you guys got to get on the roster first. It's real simple. You head over to YouTube, you hit that subscribe button at Grumblings Media, hit the thumbs up, if you will, share to all your family and friends that love football talk. This is the one-stop, most interactive NFL talk show you're going to find. And we're self-proclaimed, but we stick to it. Ask any one of our Blitz Nation members. They'll tell you the same thing. We react to every comment. You saw tonight how we handle things, and look forward to the future. Continue to build with us. We have eclipsed 10,000 subscribers. We're climbing for very high results this year. I'm saying it. We're going for 20,000. I'm saying it this season. We want to reach that 20,000 mark in subscribers. We need you guys' help to do it. You guys are the reason why we do this show. We have so much fun doing it. It's a passion of ours. We know it's a passion of yours. So join us every single week as we talk more football, because what else is there to talk about? The NBA? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, the Knicks. Like, who cares? Like, come on, man. Like, congratulations, you guys. You guys have made it this far because Boston just blew it for you, and now Tatum's injured. Congratulations, rejoice. Jesus. Guys celebrate after 20 years not making the playoff or making them farther in the playoffs. It's funny, but all right. So thank you so much for joining us.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.